Well, Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the Dream On series, part 2. And love the topic today, how to become the greatest me I can be. And really what this boils down to is finding our purpose. What is God's great purpose for my life? And the passage is really cool. Mark 10:35 to 45. You see some of Jesus's disciples essentially trying to find their purpose. And James and John go to Jesus and they tell Jesus, kind of interesting, Jesus, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. And Jesus proceeds to give them a lesson in what their purpose really is. And I love down about halfway through that passage where it says Jesus called them to himself. Jesus called them to himself. And so for me, that's a great reminder that, yeah, there are some specific things we're called to do, but ultimately we're called to go to Jesus and to walk with Jesus. So anyway, great passage, and this would be a great way to start by reading through that and seeing the lesson that Jesus teaches James and John about what their purpose really is.
Point number 1 says God's great purpose for my life. It says is really not about me. And we look at the previous passage, Mark 8:34. As you were stating earlier, Pastor Glenn, this is not a popular verse because it says, whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. And of course, we see in the whole previous passage that Jesus, he really had the right as the Son of God to claim every privilege that he could possibly claim. But instead, he laid all of it down for me.
Yes. And Jesus, he's the God of the universe. He didn't have to go to the cross.
Yeah.
And we don't have to go to the cross. But Jesus says, if you want to follow me, you got to go to the cross like I went to the cross. You got to lay down your life and find out what my purpose for your life is. So yeah, that's a challenging verse, and I think in some ways a foreign concept. We don't want to deny ourselves the things that we want and our own comfort. So Jesus challenges us, if we want to follow him, deny ourselves, take up his cross and follow him. Why is personal denial such a foreign concept for all of us in our culture, in our society today?
Point number 2 says sometimes includes suffering. And Acts 5:41 says, so they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for his name. Counted worthy to suffer. I don't know that I would really rejoice in being counted worthy to suffer for Christ. But as we see, this is exactly what Jesus did when he gave up his rights and privileges to come down for us.
Yeah. And especially when you compare what the first church was dealing with compared to the church today in America, where I'm not sure there's a lot of suffering that we could claim that we're going through. These folks were being ostracized for their faith, killed for their faith, and really had to stand up and be very, very different from their culture. And so as we kind of think about, well, what does suffering mean for us? It's good to ask that question. Is suffering a deal breaker? Are we willing to suffer for Jesus? And then what would suffering look like for us here today in the American church, where being... Point number 3, finding our purpose involves serving others. And Matthew 25:35-36, Jesus gets real specific, kind of gets in our faces, and he's talking about, I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. And if we're serving, we are serving the people around us and the people that God has put in our lives. I'm thankful that we have a church that is all about that. And we're involved in our community. We are making a difference. Even in toward the end of this last year, we were able to provide Christmas gifts for so many people, and really bless a lot of families through serving.
Yeah, and we always have lots of opportunities with our out team. They go out every weekend, and really do this. They feed those who are hungry and serve those who are. And I really love how that ties into point one that we talked about earlier. And it's really not about you. It's taking the time to sacrifice your time, your energies, the resources, the things that God has blessed us with, and using it to make an impact in the world around us. So our question could be, how does the commitment to serve others change your heart? Point number 4 in finding our purpose is that it will one day be worth it all. And Matthew 25:23 says, his Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. I mean, it just wraps it all up. All the suffering, all of the denying ourselves, the seeking to serve others, it may seem tough here, and it also may seem like we're making enormous sacrifices. But in the end, our Father's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant, and it'll be worth it.
Yeah, and the key that Jesus is pointing out here is our perspective.
Yeah.
Jesus gave it all, and he's saying to us, hey, if you want to be like me, you got to give it all. But if we have the perspective that we give everything in this life to follow Jesus and be a Jesus follower, this life is over in the blink of an eye, and we have eternity
with him
to spend with Jesus and to celebrate the miracles that he did on earth.
How awesome is that?
Yeah. So our question today, does thinking in terms of eternity change your purpose for today?